Greetings and salutations, Internet. It is I, Wolfphototech, and I get people every so often telling me, slow down. But anyways, for me, I like to go fast when I watch videos or something like that because I get really bored easily. I do not watch any live streams, with the exception of a handful channels, and that's just because I really like the YouTubers and etc. But I get super bored super easily when it comes to live streams. Even like something like Critical Role bores the snot out of me a lot. And all the ads they put into the show, it's just, yeah. Speaking of which, if you saw the thumbnail, I like to play dangerous. I cover stuff like Pathfinder. I cover stuff like Dungeons and Dragons, Call of Cthulhu, and so on and so forth. But every so often I play a little dangerous and I play with the bad boys. So I happened to pick this up recently. This is Those Pesky Goblinz, written by Justin LaNasa of TSR Games. This is the first edition. I might actually meet up with the guy at some point in the future and get him to sign this copy. However, I am going to be honest as much as I can be about this product, and I don't know if he will be willing to sign it after, if he happens to see this video, or he's just going to still go with, yeah, signing it is okay. But I'm going to be absolutely honest when it comes to this. And I'm also going to, I'm not going to kiss butt, and I'm not going to be a total hater. I try to be as honest as possible. This is a rather slim, fairly nice cover book. It's a soft cover, as you can tell. It's fairly flexible. It's printed here in the United States. Ernie Gygax approves. Boop. In the corner. This book, I forget how much it cost me. It was not expensive. It was actually quite cheap. So considering that, it's okay. At least it's cheap, so I'm going to give it a point for that. Those Pesky Goblinz, a game about deep, dark, and dismal creatures by Justin LaNasa. This is the first edition. This is probably obviously based on... There's some mechanics in here that are in line with Dungeons & Dragons Advanced 2nd Edition. I'm dying, but so is everyone else. It's just a matter of who gets there first. But anyways, this is... the mechanics in this book are loosely based around, say, like Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 2nd Edition, / a little bit of flavoring from 1st Edition in it. So that's a quick point of reference for this book. The opening page looks rather nice. You've got this old Grognard Society Authority stamp right here. I have to be very careful because there's actually a warning in this book that states it's about showing too much of this book. There's a replication of this book on the internet or such stuff such as that, so no copying out of the book. And that's pretty much it right there. There's some really nice artwork in this book. I do have to say, it ranges a variety. There's a 2-page section. There's a forward, introduction. There is a dedication, a poem in here from dedication from Ernie Gygax. So far, it's pretty good all around. You get to the character creation section. You have 2 tables that start out, the one's traits and backgrounds. Reading through the character creation section, it makes a lot of sense. It's really simple. It's a 2d6 based system. So instead of 3d6, it's 2d6. And it starts out pretty well. The traits section, it makes sense overall how he has written it out. However, it might be easier and more clear if some rewording was done to specify more clearly that roll 1d20 on the traits table, and then roll 1d20 on the backgrounds table for randomization. And then a little clarification on one of the sections, because there's one of the possibilities of roll twice for traits. That might actually be a little bit more clarification, but other than that, it's pretty clear. You would have to read through the whole instructions and then read through the traits, and then it makes sense in retrospect what he's going with. However, I would have just reworded it a little bit different, so it'll be more obvious as you were reading each section before you got through the whole thing what he actually meant by it. So far, traits, backgrounds, I say for flavor, that is a 5-star right there. Pretty good. Unnaturally weak option down here. I might have swapped that out for like red goblin. You're now fire resistant. Maybe purple goblin, that you're poison resistant. Something else different other than unnaturally weak, which then means you only roll 1d6 for 2 stats, your strength and con. Ooh! You roll 1d6 each and you get a 1 on both of those, you're not going to be long for this world. But anyways, it goes into the abbreviation key, and then it goes into on the following page after the background section and traits. It goes to the abbreviation key, the initiative, explaining blind fighting, pivot points, which is a really neat system that Ernie Gygax devised ages ago that gets used by other TTRPG companies, but actually is really interesting how he has implemented it here. And a quick explanation of the THAC-10 system. My only notation is I'm a little special. The roll to hit, the die roll to score a hit, use 1d20. At least that part is really clear. The chart is, say, a little complicated. I'm special. I took the short bus to school, so it took me a while to mentally process what he's going with, and then it occurred to me that there's potentially some information that's missing from the chart. So going further into the book and looking at equipment, there's a little bit of information that might be needed to be added in future revisions to further clarify to people the AC system, a little expansion here and there. That's the hardest part of this entire book right here I've come across, is the AC system complication. I didn't grow up playing the old editions. I basically came around on the WotC era of tabletop games, so I'm more familiar with ascending AC as opposed to descending AC. So it takes a little bit of extra thought for me. Other than that, continuing on, the only major gripe I have is so far with the system is the AC system is a little unclear and looks to potentially be missing information. Then we get to the classes. You got Warrior, Wizard, and you have Shaman, Rogue, and that's it. You got the 4 core classes. You got Shaman, Rogue, Warrior, Wizard. Shaman is basically takes the place of Cleric. And if you were to read through the text for the Warrior, it makes perfect sense. It has very wonderful sense of really fun sense of humor about it. There's a few good chuckles here. There's a few little a short story of an event here with the wizard I find absolutely delightful. The charts make absolute sense for the system. I understand the concept of saving against poison and wand and stone and breath and spell. It's only a level 1 to 10 system. So it's not going super far. So hey, since Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, most players don't get past level 6 and or level 11, 12, making a 1 to 10 system perfectly fine. Not very many people these days don't go terribly far. Yet again, humorous, very humorous little blurbs about each class. It gives you that accurate feeling of what the class is like with that little crazy goblin humor, wacky fire, burn everything, ha 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 kind of thing. The charts look rather nice. Yet again, much like Advanced Dungeons and Dragons 1st edition and Advanced Dungeons and Dragons 2nd edition, the rogue actually has an extra chart right at the very bottom of the page for opening locks and find and remove traps, picking a pocket, move silent through an area, hide in shadows, climb walls, hear noise, and read language. Simple read language. You just roll a die, you got a percentage die, a D10 and a D1 10s, or you can get one of those big roll dies and just roll. I have a video on the channel where I took one of those gigantic ball dies and just roll it repeatedly and just watch it wander over the table. So that is actually, and yet again, this section right here, the classes, very well written, really humorous. There's fun little bits of story and tip here and there built into it. You know what? So far, the worst thing about this game is that THAC 10 page. That is complicated. Also, noting that if I wrote this book, the one thing I would change is I would move the next section, the attributes section, to where the location of the abbreviation key and the initiative / THAC 10 pages, to keep the flow of the book going, because naturally you end up, it's in the instructions for the character creation section by the traits and backgrounds table. It tells you roll on the traits table, then the backgrounds table, and then go all the way over to the attributes table, which is on page 14. You go past the abbreviation key and the THAC 10 and the initiative and the classes, and you go a few pages over and you hit the attributes. I would have just moved the attributes over to where that was, and more fluid. And then we get into the next section, the equipment section. The equipment section is really neat. It has one of my favorite currencies, Electrum. I approve of that. Each little category is rather has a bit of information. It makes all sense, and then you go through it, and it looks good. Belts, hats, breeches, fairly decent pricing. It doesn't entirely make sense. Goblins typically don't exchange money per se. They usually just take stuff. But okay, just maybe there's a goblin store in your village or in your camp that sells goods. This is not a typical goblin society. Then there is a bit of a little issue with here in the equipment section. With the armor section, there is unclear information about the AC of the armor or any such. It appears to be missing from this section. I've flipped through the book a few times. I've mostly read the front half of the book, and I didn't go into, say, like the adventure in the back or most other places, but appears to be missing information for the AC adjustment on the armor. There is some of that information on the THAC 10 table for earlier in the book, but it's usually nice to have it not just on the table, but also in the equipment section. And also, some of the names for the armor are simplified down on the THAC 10 table, or even looks to be missing. Yeah. So there's a slight error right there with the armor section. That needs to be cleaned, or adjusted, fixed up. So far we found 2 notable problems in this book. The Fact 10 table is missing information and is overly complicated, and I'm special. I don't know if I missed something in the book somewhere else. And on the equipment section, it has the damage for the weaponry and stuff like that. It has everything else, but the armor is missing its AC adjustment, with save for one of the armor categories, which is the Dragon Scale Mail, which is actually doesn't even have a price. It actually just has GM decision on it, so it might be some kind of big reward. So, okay. And then it goes into the next section called Goblin Magic. I read through this section. It has actually rather delightfully humorous. I don't mean in a bad way. I mean, like, there's still the little bits of dark humor sprinkled throughout it that fits the goblin aesthetic, and clarifies that goblins use a different variation of magic that doesn't require all the ranges, simplified through, and they have some modifications to how they do things, as I said before, but they also have their own spells that are different from what other classes in other in like Advanced Dungeons and Dragons or Advanced Dungeons and Dragons 2nd Edition has. So you got like spells like Fire Fingers and Fool's Gold and a few other fun stuff. It has its own little table for the Goblin Wizard and the Goblin Shaman by the level. So you can easily, once you read the basic description of the special rules for goblins, right below it is a nice little table that has the 1st level, 2nd level, 3rd level, 4th level, 5th level spells, all of them for goblins, for both the Goblin Wizard and Sorcerer, and immediately goes into Goblin Wizard spells, 1st level, 2nd level, 3rd level, 4th level, 5th level, very much in the same style as Advanced Dungeons and Dragons 1st Edition and 2nd Edition. So people who have played those systems just roll right into it. It makes absolute sense. It took me a moment for my brain to convert everything to make sense, but it makes sense. And then there's some pretty cool spells they have here for the goblins, like at their 6th level. Continuing on, we go into the little section called the Random Magic Items section, right after the spells. The Random Magic Items section has specific instructions how to roll a combination of dice, like D6s, D10s, and in multiple segments of rolls in a sequence. So you can do you can roll with a D100 and a bunch of D6s, a range from 1 to 148. Now the problem with that is it overly is complicating. It took me a long time for my brain to process what he means by rolling a D10 and a D6 for a range of 1 to 20, and then you roll a D6 multiple times to modify off of that initial set of rolls. Okay, you could have just, my best thing would be that how I would have done it is I would actually have broken this up into a different set of random tables. And there would be a little more instructions on the top, like, if you're going to roll for 10 different things, you roll 10 D4s or D6s, and those numbers would determine which table you would roll on, and you would roll on each one of those tables independently, either with the D100s or D20s, or D30s if you want to go with D30. So far that the treasure table is kind of overly complicated. There's a nice little chart here for encounters with some basic information for monsters. Nothing too overly in-depth. It works. Basic information. You could go and grab an OSR book and probably fill in the different, the missing, any more information you want into this. I should like rephrase this whole section right here. There are very simple. There's this vertical chart of 1 to 30 for different encounters, and there is a name, and then there's basic information like dexterity, hit dice, AC, movement, special, etc., etc., alignment, and so forth. That very very bare bones, very basic stat blocks for 30 monsters to roll for. And if you really wanted more flavor and details on top of this, you probably grab, say, like yourself the monster manual for first edition or the monster manual for second edition advanced and to fill out the details on that more effectively, or grab a monster book from the OSR. That'd be good. There is a character sheet here. The character sheet is actually really well thought out. It's kind of really cool how very simple, very plainly organized it is in a manner that is easy to keep track of all your stuff. And you could just focus on certain little areas. Like the top of the chart is basically all your core stats and penalties. The center is basically your equipment. And then you got some jewelry and magic items down here. And then there's a little fun chart down here that you can copy your information down onto. That is basically a miniaturized, simple, adjustable miniaturized version of the THAC 10 table earlier on, that you can fill in the details for all your stuff. And all you have is just a single sheet that is nice and clear with pre-filled out information that's universal to all characters in the game. Like the fact that the goblins have 120 inches or feet of infravision. I'm special, I have to look at that stuff. I have to figure that out if it's foot or inches. And then right after that, you have an adventure. The adventure for this book, is actually built off of the Curse of Abandon module that TSR produced last year. Yeah. Which I have a copy of, and I have a review video in the description below. So there you go. I quickly read over this. This is actually rather interesting adventure with some nice details. It might actually be really good to hybridize this with the Cult of Abandon. So you can actually play your characters, run your players through an adventure, and have the goblins if they play as regular characters, there's like a regular fighter, a rogue, bard, etc. Through the Cult of Abandon, you can have some goblins show up that are built from those pesky goblins show up and screw with the characters in the town of Morris, or the village of Morris. It's actually a village. And then at some later point, you can have your players play Pesky Goblinz and have the goblins visit, and all of a sudden they run into an adventuring party that's based on their characters, and they battle it out. And you're going to have a player that's going to say, "Oh man, that's so cool." This is the other side of that adventure. Overall, it looks to be actually rather well organized overall. As I said, overall, it seems to be rather well organized. I did not read the adventure into super deep detail, but I don't see any serious issues in it at all. There's also, yet again, at the very end of the adventure, there's another random loot table, this time a D100, which is very funny because the very last item on the D100 table for loot at the back end of the adventure is the number 100 is dice. And number 1 is Heirloom Broadsword, plain but quality. An unknown script runs along the inner side of the scabbard. And number 2 is my favorite, my second favorite. A Floppy Green Hat. Hiya. And then at the very back, you have an ad for a product that's being sold in conjunction with the Dungeon Hobby Shop. And an ad for the Dungeon Hobby Shop, as well as a nice little piece of artwork at the very back. Overall, I say this has a lot of potential to be something really good and really fun to play with, but it has 2 areas that need to be fixed in it to truly allow for it to elevate itself to a good product. So far, it's like in that, someone needs to like make a fixed version of the THAC 10 table and write out the rest of the information for the AC for the armor. But that's basically it. Everything else is just minor little stuff, you know. You see some words getting a little bunched together, you know, like right up against each other, right on the comma and stuff like that. And I read that. Oh, it's perfectly fine. It's just, you know, someone forgot to hit the space bar once here, and a quarrel. You get a quarrel of arrows. A quarrel. What is it? Where is that again? It was another thing I came across. In the equipment you get for there is a background where sentry. You get 30 quarrels in a case. Yeah. I thought for a moment that was some kind of ancient term meant for like bolts or arrows, because the character that background gets a crossbow. So, a quarrel is basically an argument. So you get 30 arguments in a case. But other than that, I forgot to turn on that light. Let's turn on the light now. There, I turned on the light. So I got more light now. But anyways, there is like an occasional minor oops, wrong word, or a punctuation error. Some things could be worded a little bit better to be more clear. Those are just minor things. The 2 big issues is the THAC 10 table seems to be missing information, and the armors have missing ACs on them, or most of them are missing ACs in the equipment section. Other than that, everything else is funny. It's creative. You have a lot of personality leaking through it. You definitely get a feel that this is supposed to be a chaotic Goblin kind of adventure, and I do love that he includes Mo and Larry in the corner here. But just a little more polish, it would have been awesome. Also, maybe like another 5 pages of clarification on some mechanics, like a few, like breaking apart the THAC 10 chart and writing out and explaining how the THAC 10 system works more than a paragraph would help out a lot. It might be just the fact that I didn't grow up on the THACO and armor class tables that makes it hard for me to instantaneously translate the whole thing in my head. So, there you go. I hope you enjoy this video. I say, if it wasn't for those 2 issues in this book, And I mean, it's literally those 2 issues. This would be a 4-star, but those 2 issues hinge on a very important mechanic in a game like this that actually pushes its sub 3 stars. It's like in the 2 to 3 star range. It's like so much of this is good, except that there's this one fairly important section of it that is slightly incomplete, that it just needs a little bit more. Yes. So, and yet again, you'll get people that on the internet reference that, oh, there's reference to slavery in here and kidnapping. They're goblins. They're evil. Yeah, evil creatures enslave other creatures. For Pete's sakes, people. So, if you want to, like, completely remove all evil things from evil creatures, you end up with a society thinking evil is not a bad thing. Because you have removed all the evil things from evil creatures. Or evil factions. So there you go. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and see you next time on the channel.